Hello everyone. I had a request to show how I do the envelopes for my collecting, so I am here to do that. I'm working on a makeshift table here. I didn't want to set up my room yet. I knew it's going to take a while to figure it out, so I'm just working here. Simple supplies. You need some paper, ruler. I use a mechanical pencil, but I will be using a Sharpie today so you can see the lines. And some glue. Glue stick works great. So what I'm using for paper, and this is my template, what I'm using for paper, I'm using up magazine pages. I'm going through magazines and catalogs, taking out all the things that I want and putting them in my envelopes. And I'm discarding what's left. So I do have quite a few pages left in some of these magazines that are full pages that haven't been torn out of or anything. So this is what I use for these envelopes. I am trying to use up stuff, try not to buy anything new, so I'm using up paper that, you know, I'm just going to throw away anyway. These envelopes are kind of junky. They're not anything to go crazy over. I'm not going for perfection. You know, I'm just working for something to use, something cheap and something that'll be used. So for the envelopes that I'm using just a standard magazine page, which is probably 8.5 by 11. And I don't actually measure. Let's go ahead and start doing a template so you can see what's going on. This is basically what the template looks like afterwards, and just so you get mechanics of how the envelope itself works. This is the top. This is the flap that folds over, and this is the top of the envelope, and those get glued together. And then this is the bottom that comes up and makes the bottom. So to make your template, you want to fold in a little bit, not too much, a little bit on the side, and this is where you're going to be gluing the top down to. Now, I didn't measure anything. I want to make this as large as possible. Some magazines aren't as big as others, so I'm not going to give dimensions. I'm just going to try to use up as much of this paper as I can. So I say that flap is probably 3/4 of an inch, a little less than an inch, I think. And I want to make it a little wide so the glue has something to stick to. So the next part of this is to take the opposite side and line it up so that you can kind of see the bottom fold. This is where you're going to be gluing. So this just gives you an idea of what size your envelope is going to be. This is pretty much it. So I don't crease real hard. This is just a template, but I can see my creases now. So I'm opening it back up. And I am going to do the bottom flap, and again, I'm not going to make it very big, probably 3/4, maybe even smaller. It doesn't really need to be that big, and I'm just going to make a fold in there so I know where it is. Now, you can fold the top, but I don't worry about that so much. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw those lines, those fold lines for you so you can see. If I can see them myself, so you can see what's going on here. So here's a fold here, there's a fold here, and there's a fold on the bottom. Okay. Alright. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my flap not very large, and I'm just going to draw where I want my flap. I'm just going to draw the lines that I am going to cut off. So this is what we've got. and I don't know if you can actually see it. This is the back of the envelope, and by the back I mean this is the envelope that we're making. This is the opening. This is the flap. This is the bottom, and this is the sides and the front. So what I would do now is cut off what I don't need, and that is the bottom of the side here. And I'm not being very precise, I'm just doing it real fast. And up here. Now when you do the bottom, and when you do the top too, but when you do the bottom, cut inside your line a little bit. It just helps make the corner a little bit square. So that's what you end up with. On the other side, same thing, cut inside the line on the bottom, and you can do it on the other side too, just a little bit. It helps keep it square a little bit. So I'm just going to cut off that little corner, just like that. Same thing with this side over here. I'm just going to cut that off, and then I'm going to cut this off. Okay, so now you have, where did we have that? The template. Now I don't have exact measurements, so you can make your flap a little bit larger, but I don't use the flaps, not any big deal. So I have a template, and what I would do is take another sturdier piece of paper, maybe the cover of one of your magazines or something, and I would take my pencil or Sharpie, and I would draw around that, and I would keep that template safe. So you don't have to do this all over again. When you use the template over and over and over again, just drawing around the template will, it distorts it after a while, quite a while. I mean, you know, it's paper, so after a while you start getting little sags and, you know, little tears and stuff. Go back to your master template, make another one, and continue going. So that's what I do. You don't have to, you know, up to you. So we've got our envelope, and like I said, I usually do this in a conveyor belt process. I'll get a ton of magazine pages and start drawing around the pages. I then cut them all out, and then I start gluing them all together. It just goes faster. I did probably 50 of them at one time. It took me an hour, and it's just faster to do all the gluing at one time, all the cutting at one time. So you've got your envelope, and actually this one's already folded, so let me go ahead and do one of the drawings around there. Now sometimes you're using different magazine pages, and sometimes they're a little smaller. It's okay for your flap, you know, to go over or whatever. You don't necessarily need to flap. I've had, you know, a smaller thing. You can make your envelope a little bit smaller, you know, whatever you want. And like I said, I am not doing anything perfection. I am just doing it quickly, not a big deal. These are just used for function, not for looks. So I'm going to cut it out again. It doesn't have to be precise, just general. kind of hard to see that one. Okay, so there's my template, or there's my envelope drawn around it. First thing I do is I fold in this flap here, and I fold in to these indented corners. So I just sit there, and again, it's not anything to worry about. It's not perfect. Kind of crease it a little bit. Take the other end, opposite side, fold it over, and this is where you're going to be gluing. Make sure, now see, I'm way off here, but that's okay. Mostly what I want to do is make sure that I'm folding the paper to these corners here. It makes the envelope a little bit sturdier, I guess, and it doesn't have to match on the side. As long as it overlaps and you have a place to glue, you're fine. Now I don't even remember which side was my top and which was my bottom. I think this is my bottom. What you can do for the top, I'm going to unfold this. If you want to make it kind of pretty, you put those two together and kind of make a slant cut. You don't have to. Just an idea. This is my bottom. I'm going to fold that up. Going to the corners again. Okay, so now is the glue part. Where did I do with my glue stick? It's on the floor. Okay, so I'm going to fold this flap over. I'm going to add glue, and I'm just using a school glue, nothing fancy, something really cheap. Going to fold this back over again and stick it down real good. I like to flatten it and make sure it's really secure. And obviously I am not being very perfect about this, and it's come over, this has come over where it shouldn't be. Not a big deal. I'm going to fold up my bottom to where I want it. Put some glue on it and fold it up. Now when you're making envelopes, you always want to do the sides first and do the bottom last. That way, when you're putting stuff in your envelope, it's not getting caught on the bottom on this flap on the inside. You got a clean place to put things in your envelope. Now, that's the envelope. Pretty simple. You can fold down the top if you want to. I've not been doing that. If you're getting your envelopes really full of stuff, you can fold it over, put a paper clip on it. You don't have to worry about gluing it, and then you can use it over and over and over again. But basically, that is your envelope. So really easy, really fast, no fuss. It works really well. You could also use like scrapbook paper, something that's a little larger. I did this envelope with a piece of scrapbook paper. It's it's in the center, the fold lines over, but it's the same basic principle. I didn't bring my templates for that. But what you do basically is fold over the paper to where you want it, fold over the other side, kind of overlap a little bit so that you have some place to glue, put up the bottom, and you pretty much got your envelope. Do the little fancy cut on the top, and you can make it as big or as little as you want. It depends on the paper size. I did some little ones with some scraps that weren't very big, really. So, I mean, it just depends on what you want to use. And here's another one that I did out of a magazine page, one of the Stampington pages that I really liked. So, so I have got different sizes. It depends on what size paper you've got. And that's as simple as that. So if you have any questions, please let me know. I hope this was helpful for you. Thanks for watching.